What is up, and welcome back to Beyond the Arc with Brandon Silvers. As always, I am your host, Brandon Silvers. We're talking Women's March Madness today, going to try to figure out who is going to win the national championship. But first, hope y'all had a great week. Glad to be talking to you again. All right, let's get into it. Okay, this has been an awesome year for women's hoops, from South Carolina's undefeated season heading into the tournament, to Caitlin Clark's scoring record chase, to LSU trying to defend its title, to all these incredible freshmen playing out of their minds. The perfect combination of great storylines and great basketball. And we still have this entire tournament left where we get even more great storylines and great basketball. Who should we be paying attention to? Who's going to win it all? There are more great teams than ever, but it's still a safe bet to assume the champion is going to be a top 3 seed. No team worse than a 3 seed has ever won the title, at least not in the NCAA era. In fact, no team worse than a 3 seed has made the Final Four since 2016. That year, 7th seeded Washington, led by WNBA All-Star Kelsey Plum, and 4th seeded Syracuse, led by one of the best defenders in the WNBA today, Brittany Sykes, made the Final Four, but Breanna Stewart and UConn won it all to cap off their perfect season. With that in mind, I'm going to focus on the teams with the best chances to win it all and sprinkle in some knowledge on some other contenders so you can sound smart and also know what games to pay attention to, since we can't watch them all, although I might try. All right, let's look at Regional 3 in Portland, starting with the 1 seed, the USC Trojans. Got to start with JuJu Watkins there, a star from the moment she stepped on the court, second in the nation behind Caitlin Clark at 27 points per game, had that insane 51-point performance against Stanford to help them beat Stanford. They couldn't do anything with her. I can't think of too many teams who can. She can score in every way imaginable. Plus, she also affects things on the defensive end as well, grabbing just over 7 boards per game to go along with 2.5 steals and a block and a half. And as much praise as she's gotten, which is probably not enough considering how awesome she is, it's easy to forget that they actually have a lot of talent surrounding her as well. In fact, they have the ability to win the rare games where JuJu is off. They just beat Stanford again in the Pac-12 title game, despite her going just 2 for 15 from the field. Now, she can and will get more efficient as she gets more experience, but games where she's not actually hitting shots don't necessarily hurt them. I took a look at the games where JuJu kept firing even though it wasn't going in, specifically games where she took at least 25 field goal attempts and hit less than her season average of 40% of them. There were 6 games that fit this criteria, and the Trojans won 4 of them, including a particularly abysmal 6 for 32 game against Oregon State. So what happened? Well, as you might have already imagined, these were games against tough defensive teams. In my Albany 1 breakdown, I talked a bit about how great Oregon State is defensively, and in addition to the 6 for 32 game, she also had an 11 for 33 game against them. It's hard for anybody to create against teams like this, so if you have one player who can create any type of offense, then you're likely to lean on them even more than you typically do. Someone has to shoot the ball. People think that if JuJu or any other scorer that fits this mold is shooting, then they're taking away a quality shot attempt from another player, when really they're most likely just taking away a similarly bad shot attempt from a player who is even less likely to convert it than she is. The key is, what is everyone else doing while all this is happening? Specifically for the Trojans, center Rhea Marshall. In these 4 games they won despite JuJu quote-unquote chucking, Marshall had at least 5 offensive rebounds in 3 of those games. More importantly, in the 2 games they lost, she had a combined 3 offensive rebounds. If and when she's able to create second chance opportunities off JuJu misses, they win. I certainly wouldn't build a strategy around missing shots, but offensive rebounds do create scoring opportunities because the defense is out of position and scrambling because they weren't, trying to defend in that moment. They were trying to rebound. So it's not a bad alternative if you're struggling to create offense within your system. And if Marshall is hitting the glass hard, the Trojans will almost always be in the game. She's even better on the defensive glass, helping to finish possessions against opposing offenses in addition to being an elite shot blocker. As we saw in the Pac-12 title game, they do have more offensive weapons than just JuJu and offensive rebounds. Harvard transfer Mackenzie Forbes is a highly effective scorer in her own right when she's playing within herself, and Kayla Padilla is a knockdown three-point shooter. They have the pieces to win a national championship, and you'd have to imagine JuJu gets at least one in her career. Is it going to be this year? I'm going with no, but I do have them coming out of this region and making the Final Four. It's not going to be easy though. 2-seed Ohio State is incredibly well-rounded. JC Sheldon is a hooper. She shoots 51% from the field as a guard, including 38% from three. In their win against Iowa, it felt like she could get to the rim and finish at will. Celeste Taylor proved every middle school coach's favorite cliche that defense travels, as she won the ACC Defensive Player of the Year last year at Duke, then transferred here and won the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year award at Ohio State. She averages 2 steals per game, nearly a block per game, which is fantastic for a guard. She also brings some playmaking to the offensive end of the court. Then you have Cody McMahon. As a freshman last year, she led this team to the Elite Eight. The assumption was that she would build on that and continue her progress this season, but progress isn't always linear. She looks more or less like the same player she was last season, and teams have kind of figured her out for the most part. She still has games where she shows her individual brilliance, like when she dropped 33 against Iowa, but they aren't as common as anybody had hoped. As great as Sheldon and the rest of this team is, they will only go as far as McMahon carries them, and I don't think she's ready for another deep run this year, especially with a potential matchup with Duke looming in the second round. The Blue Devils did lose Taylor, but defense stays put too because they still defend their asses off. Any team that can disrupt opponents' offensive rhythms as well as Kara Lawson's squad always has a chance, and I feel like this is an upset waiting to happen. If the Buckeyes manage to survive that one, then they still most likely will have to survive against UConn too. UConn as a 3-seed and not really a national championship contender feels weird, but welcome to the new landscape of women's college basketball. Paige Beckers has been mostly healthy and had a great season, so that's great to see, and I'm hoping she'll continue to regain her confidence as she remains healthy and will assert her dominance more in games the way she did her freshman year when she took over and helped the Huskies beat South Carolina. That's going to take time though. This team will be a tough out. They have a lot of top-end talent that can carry them on a deep run, like Paige and Aaliyah Edwards, but they also have a lot of injuries that have robbed them of the depth needed to really compete against the best of the best in this tournament. So really those top 3 seeds are probably it as far as true Final Four contenders in this region. Virginia Tech is a wild card as the 4 seed because of that Liz Kitley injury. I actually think because Marshall plays such a wild style of basketball that they can pull off the upset against them in the first round. Overall, though, it's the Trojans' region to lose. That will do it for this region's bracket preview. Feel free to respectfully agree or disagree in the comments below. Be sure to check out my other bracket previews as well and tap into my blog, the show notes, for more coverage. Information for that is in the show notes down below. Appreciate you watching, listening, rating, subscribing, reviewing, and sharing. And I will catch you later.